Okay, so my apocalypse is coming a lot sooner than I expected. I got this scab assuming that it was just a prank because some dude bit me, but I feel like it might be a lot more drastic than that. I might be infected. Oh well, I guess I got nothing better to do with my life anyways. Time to play another game. Alright, we got Lollipop Chainsaw starring a zombie hunting cheerleader created by the same people that made No More Heroes and... Is that James Gunn? Yeah, that got me by surprise, but judging by the nature of this game, I shouldn't be shocked. The dude does make a lot of comedy movies, and combine that with Suda51's wackiness, the game should be a recipe for over-the-top video game action. And on June 12, 2012, we got the game for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and to this day, no remaster has been planned. Now, I have an interesting history with this game. I got it for my birthday, and coincidentally, that's actually the plot for this game. Juliet Starling, our main heroine, is celebrating her 18th birthday. From memory, I can recall the first playthrough I did, I really enjoyed the game, but the second time I tried to play through it, I didn't really like it as much, and I can't recall exactly why. I'm hoping to revisit this game to see what I think about it overall, and to give it a grade whether or not this game deserves to graduate through Video Game Academy, or drop out like an American weeaboo pretending to be in the harem. So let's pop in to see what this game has in store for me, before I turn into a zombie. That's clearly what this scab is all about, right? Oh, this game is not backwards compatible. Well, no worries, I do still have an Xbox 360 just in case, but this also means that I'm reverting back to the Xbox 360 controller. Nothing really particularly wrong about it aside from the frickin' D-pad. I just find the Xbox One controller to be way more superior, and unfortunately, you can't use your Xbox One controller on your Xbox 360.
Seriously? Dude. The hell?
Okay, I'm gonna have to cross out the subtlety on things I witnessed before I die. I guess the last thing I did on my save file was play in this bunny suit. So it turns out there's only one save file per gamertag, and I don't feel like deleting my save file, so I'm just gonna go through the story in a chapter-based setting. Now there is a time trial mode that I can do, and it does let you watch the cutscenes with no time loss, but by doing so, all the stores are disabled and replaced by attacking chickens. Don't ask why, there's a reason for that once we get to the chicken chapter. I guess the best way to start off this game is to explain the mechanics, so to get the basics of the controls, it's like any standard hack and slash game. You have three main attacks, a light attack using your pom-poms to stun enemies, a heavy attack utilizing your chainsaw, and a low attack which attacks either smaller opponents or finishes off dying zombies. Oh god! Ah! Move, Juliet! Literally, that man can't feel his no more! You can jump with the B button. Yeah, that's right, you can jump with the B button! How wacky is that? Though it makes sense since it functions more as a dodge button, since you can't really platform your way through the game unless it's these automated QuickTime events, and after 3 triple jumps, you're vulnerable to enemy attacks. Throughout the game, you'll gain special moves and power-ups to deal with the zombie apocalypse, like the Chainsaw Dash, where you press the left bumper to zoom your way past enemies, mowing down each one of them, though it does require fuel to use. The Chainsaw Blaster, which turns your chainsaw into a shotgun, it's a serviceable way to include third-person shooter combat into the game, but I hate the auto-aim. They always lock into random opponents, so when you try to aim for a certain enemy, if there's another enemy next to that zombie, it starts to target them instead. You also have various Nick attacks too, Nick being your decapitated boyfriend. You can attach him towards glowing zombies in order to progress through the story utilizing QuickTime events, or you can use some Nick tickets. Some of them can be very useful, like the Nick Toss, where you hurl your boyfriend's head into oncoming enemies. The Nick Popper, which functions more or less like the Chainsaw Blaster, a little disappointing. And lastly, the Nick Shoot. It's pathetic, don't use it. But there is one ticket that's extremely overpowered called the Nick Shake. It's completely useless in battle since you're wide open for attacks, but outside of battle, it's the perfect place to grind for zombie tokens and lollipops. If I get the chance to do so, I always use this special move just in case I need to purchase more special combos or food items. Or hell, even more Nick tickets if I want to further the grind. The downside though is that you're not allowed to spam the Nick ticket in the same area, so doing a complete grind fest is impossible, but you still get a chunky amount of coins if you use this. You may notice the super meter. Once it's max level, you initiate a super state called Star Power, where every attack against regular enemies are amplified, even one-shotting them, and you gain way more zombie coins while you're in this state as well. It's basically the equivalent of a Devil Trigger in the Devil May Cry series. Utilizing this at the appropriate time can make moments where hordes of zombies more laxing, or deal with mini-bosses a lot more easily. That being said, there are two different currencies for you to purchase either upgrades, ammos, or cosmetics. The gold coins are mostly used for extra combos or health upgrades, while the silver coins are mostly cosmetic if anything, such as extra concept art or costumes for your cheerleader. And if you happen to be a man of culture, you gotta save up for those platinum tokens if you want the most skimpiest outfit, like the skin-tight biker outfit. This game is straight up unabashful with its fan service. You can even get an achievement for looking up at her panties. You know something weird about this game? If you own the Japanese version, Juliet's voice actress changes depending on if you own the Xbox or the PlayStation version. I don't know why that's the case, I feel like that's a waste of development funds. I guess while we talk about Juliet, let's talk about her design. It's absolutely perfect. Her pigtails make her look more like a young energetic girl, her cheerleading outfit just adds towards both her sex appeal and her cute personality. She is a happy-go-lucky girl and always overly ecstatic over the most simplistic things, especially whenever she gets a lady boner for Nick. On top of that, she's also got a brash personality that shows her hot-headed side, and on top of that, she's also a little bit ditzy too, not picking up certain cues or sexual innuendos. Basically being oblivious by her own fantasies and not realizing her surroundings.
We need to break through that wall. Can you give me a hand?
Yeah, right. I don't have a hand to give.
Well, not yet, but that spell I cast on you gives you some magical powers.
What?
Like maybe I can connect you to this zombie's body and you can temporarily use it.
Huh?
Nick, look! If I use this ticket, I can totally use your cool powers.
Whatever, dude.
And while we're on the subject of her voice acting, Tara Strong does a fantastic job at portraying Juliet. I honestly can't imagine her in any other voice. The same characteristic designs extend towards the setting of the game and every other character design as well. This game couldn't look any more 80s, just look at Juliet's sister and her father. They stylized in retro, and for this video game, it works very well. Alright, with that out of the way, let's go to level and talk about the story. So, Spoiler warning! I feel like I should be saving that for a Chrono Trigger review instead of this game. This is just how I roll when reviewing games. I'd like to cover everything and anything possible, and that includes story elements. To be fair, this game doesn't have a long-winded story plot, but I always feel the need to warn people ahead of time if they legitimately want to play the game. Otherwise, if you already played this game or really don't care about story spoilers, please proceed. Well, it's Juliet Starling's birthday, and she plans on celebrating it with her boyfriend, Nick. But uh-oh, she is late for school, so she rides off and drives into a horde of zombies. Looks like the school is infected, and Juliet plans to exterminate the infestation, so we rescue classmates that will eventually die anyways.
Jesus Christ! Get off me, you bastard! Oh, shit!
Excuse me, ma'am, but, your husband has one final word before he unfortunately passed away. Let me recite it for you. So classmates are sprinkled into the game from time to time, and you can choose to save them if you want. However, if you fail to save them in time, you'll have to deal with them, and they do not f*** around. These guys, if infected, get an HP boost compared to regular zombies, and deal more damage as well. It's also mandatory that you had to rescue every civilian if you want to get the best ending possible. I did not do that. So I guess I'm not getting the good ending after all. We'll get to that when we get to that, but for now, it's time to rescue our boyfriend, Nick. And he got bit by a zombie afterwards. But don't worry, guys, because Juliet has a plan.
I love you too, baby!
Cause that is how you cure a disease!
Just die!
But there's actually a reason for that, as by cutting off his head, the venom coming from his arm is no longer connected to his head, and with some magic, Nick is alive again, except now he can't get laid. Exploring the school grounds a little bit more further, we need to meet Juliet's sensei. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. There are some mini-games that are sprinkled into these chapters, whether it's playing basketball and baseball with a chainsaw, defending a horde of dynamite-wearing zombies, going after your explosive birthday cake. There's even an entire chapter dedicated to video game references, and I think they're the most interesting part of this game. I think for the most part, most of these minigames serve its purpose. I'm not a huge fan of whenever zombies try to block my shots when I go for three-pointers, but this baseball game works fine, and mowing down zombies with a lawnmower while listening to Spin Like like a record by Dead or Alive is cathartic, unless you try to go for this achievement, in which case it's a grind. I don't really have a lot of issues with these minigames. I think they're a fine pace breaker for the repetitive zombie bashing you'll do throughout the game. We find out that the zombie outbreak is due to the work of Swan, an antisocial emo kid who's been on the unfortunate end of being bullied and humiliated, and getting jealous for not going after Juliet and dating Nick. He summons 5 dark purveyors, scattering them across San Romero. These include Zed, a lead singer for a punk band who uses his voice as ammunition for damage, Vike, a Viking flying a floating ship who can split into separate body parts, Mariska, a hippie that had way too much grass and can multiply, Josie, an auto-tuned funk master who wears a diaper, what the f***, and Lewis Legend, a guy who rides a motorcycle. Nice to see that they saved the least interesting purveyor for last. After getting blasted, we are immediately set to confront Zed, and this guy just loves to be a misogynistic bastard. Back then when I first played through this game, I complained about him being sexist, rude, and obnoxious, but nowadays when I look at him, well no shit, he's a bad guy, of course he's gonna act like that. He's the perfect bad guy that you just want to murder senselessly. His boss battle in itself has you avoiding literally his words, detaching his speakers so that you can reach him. Not my favorite by any means, but a pretty good first boss to encounter. Unfortunately, not all as well, as our sensei is dying after telling us to deal with the remaining purveyors.
Sensei, no! Don't leave!
Oh, I have this for you, Juliet. Happy birthday, Juliet.
Alright, so after we beat Zed and throughout all the chaos and mischief that we had to encounter, why did this chapter take 2 hours long? Dear God, if you want to see an example of padding, this chapter is the one. Not counting the prologue, this is the first chapter of the game and it takes you between an hour or 2 to beat casually. And I think if they split the school section and the junkyard into 2 different chapters, that would have been perfect, but they combined the 2 together for some reason. This not only makes the chapter way longer than it needs to be, but it's also inconsistent with the rest of the following chapters. Not even the final chapter takes nearly as long as this one. The next chapter puts us through a stadium arena, and we are introduced to one of Juliet's 2 sisters. This is Cordelia, Juliet's older sister. She is a sniper with a badass attitude, and I love her. From her voice acting, her outfit, her haircut. Oof, mama, just... alright, I gotta shut up. I feel like this zombie toxin is gonna rewire my brain or something. After the obstacle course of avoiding lightning, we finally encounter Vike, and seeing how he's only the second boss, I'm sure I'll be fine. Oh my god, stop, please stop, oh my god, quit comboing me, ah! Holy crap, this guy's kicking my ass! Is he playing pinball with his head? Stop it! Die, you piece of shit! Wow, that was certainly a tough fight, but because of that, I feel like my ranking is gonna be lowered.
Well...
I love you, baby. Mwah.
Woohoo! Perfect!
Okay, we take those. Our next chapter takes us to a farm where we meet Rosalind, Juliet's younger, very hyper sister, but throughout the chapter she doesn't appear to be acting like herself, so in order to save her from potential harm, let's do some drugs. So during our binge on eating mushrooms, we found Mariska and she's controlling Rosalind the entire time, putting her under a spell. As for her boss fight, it's pretty damn fun. You may think that her clothes might be an annoyance, but thankfully all of them share the same health bar. The battle can get pretty tense too, with her bubbles attacking you from all sides, so you need to pay attention to her attacks. And for once, the auto-aim doesn't actually bother me too much. Fighting the sender does come with some issues, but since most of the bubbles dissipate with one shot, it's not all too bad. I like the section where you need to haul ass in order to finish her. It's tense, but satisfying when you deliver the final blow. Huh, that's the third time that chant is being played out now. What does that mean? Well, regardless, we're back at the very beginning of this stage, and it turns out the entire chapter was just an hallucination, and Rosalind got kidnapped during the distraction. So we attempt to go to the arcade with the help of Juliet's father. Yes, it's always an awkward encounter every time you meet your, significant other's parents. And man, is this guy giving Nick the stern look.
What are you gonna do? Throw magic stars at chupacabras with your tongue?
Maybe, Dad. Nick's tongue is very limber.
And how do you know that?
Although Juliet's not really helping either. Okay, so it's off to the arcade now. I've pulled most of my information on the minigames in this chapter. Let's go by them one by one. You get a Pac-Man level. If you know Pac-Man, you should know how to play this. A Hotel Mario level, and trust me, it is way better than the actual game. A Pong level, and a Gondola level. The Pac-Man level respects the source material very well. You avoid the ghost, or in this case, the Pac-Men, and you can collect power pellets that increase your star power to max. A very clever way to parallel Pac-Man's mechanics to Lollipop Chainsaws. One thing I kind of wish for is that when you get to Star Power, the song changes from Hey Mickey to Pac-Man Fever. It would have been so fitting. Pac-Man Fever is on the game's soundtrack, but I feel they misplaced it since the music plays after the minigame rather than during the minigame. The Hotel Mario level is funny. They made a shit CDI game? Not shit. It plays more like a maze, but the layout is not that confusing at all. If I have one issue with this level is that the game looks 2D, but you still have 3D movement. I would have liked it if the entire level was 2D. The next level is Pong, and it's okay. It's pretty annoying since the camera is still in a third-person perspective. I think an overhead view similar to Pac-Man would have made the level better and more efficient, since you can't really see the ball in third-person perspective, but for an overhead view, the ball is always in place, meaning you can dodge when you need to dodge and fight when you need to fight. And to top it off, I don't like the music too much. It's dubstep, and I'm never going to be a huge fan of the genre, and it's very misplaced in this level too. But thankfully, that's only the worst section of this level. Right? And then we get to the Holy fuck! If there's anything that completely ruins this chapter for me, it's this stupid minigame! These enemy projectiles are completely RNG, whether they drop objects that may or may not align towards the other objects, and sometimes you are set to an impossible situation where there's no way to progress. The controls are all digital, making analog movements completely pointless. You move from one space, but only a tiny bump can send you to an early grave. I also hope that you're sidekicked, because there are times where it is literally impossible to react on time when missiles do spawn. Now what the hell? How am I supposed to react to that? The level is also extremely glitchy too. Like, what the hell? I got hit by that cow? How did it not hit me? And I got hit by that missile afterwards? What? I was moving left! I was not in the vicinity of my hitbox! Oh yeah, and did I mention that you die from one hit? I never gotten a single game over in any part of this game, except for this section. I died 14 times before beating this level. Ah! Damn it, the torture. Never have I ever wanted to encounter anything like that for as long as I live. Wait, what? You beat the gondola game without shooting. Well, why didn't the game tell me that sooner? That would have made things so much easier! I guess that's kind of my fault for not experimenting with any other buttons, but yeah, I sort of made it needlessly harder on myself by not shooting projectiles. I still don't like the level, but it is a lot easier to get by once you know this info. I think if you play with a brand new save file, the game tells you that you can shoot with the Y button, but if you play through the chapter again, the tutorial doesn't pop up. It seems rather odd that they wouldn't tell you a brief prompt reminding the players of the controls. I get it if the developers don't want to repeat the dialogue once, but what if you play the chapter again after not playing the game in a while? You're just leaving the player out of the loop of information that they might need. Anyways, I've complained about the gondola long enough. On to the boss battle against Josie, the diaper-wearing man. And thank goodness I'm no longer complaining. This is actually a damn good fight. It combines both third-person shooter and hack and slash very well. There's this funny Simon game where you basically play Simon by matching the buttons of his prompts, and his second phase where you go into hyperspace is a good way to test your maneuverability. I think out of all the boss battles, this one is my favorite. It's sort of a shame that my two favorite boss battles are in the middle of the story, because it sort of goes downhill from here.
May his feet a reggae Mario.
So now that we got all the game together, they formulated a plan to go after the last Dark Purveyor. This level is long. I mean, I get it, it's the climax of the game, so long levels are needed, but it's all the same. The previous levels added mini-games and new enemies to spice up the gameplay. but this chapter doesn't seem to do anything new. Yeah, that even includes the wait minigame where you have to kill the enemies as fast as possible before the lip becomes overburdened. It is more or less the same as just fighting the zombies, just within a time limit. Even the boss battle Lewis, he's nothing too special. His motorcycles can turn into a mech, which I found pretty cool, but gameplay wise, this actually makes it easier to deal with him. When he's on his motorcycle, he's quick and you have to dodge his attacks and counterattack at the right moment, but once you get into his mech form, the strategy to beat him is exactly the same, except now he's bigger, so he's actually a lot more easier to hit. So if you've been paying attention to those chants, Swan actually planned this brigade all along, as once they chant upon their deaths, including Swan himself,
Bitch!
the spell seems to summon an entity the size of Godzilla, known as Killability. Now this is the true final boss, and he's easy. But before we get to his boss battle, Morikawa actually has the ability to contact Julia from the dead, and he tells us straight up how to beat him. His first form is an auto battle, just dodge when the game tells you to dodge, and attack when the game tells you to attack. And in his second form, just cut off his regrowing fingers, dodge any incoming attacks, boom, he's dead. In terms of spectacle, he's definitely a threat because of how big he is compared to the level, but during gameplay, he's somewhat disappointing. So to conclude the story, Morikawa tells us that Nick has to sacrifice himself in order to destroy Killability from the inside. He explodes, but there seems to be a certain side effect.
Juliet?
Nick!
Juliet!
Okay, that was legitimately funny. Juliet's father is alive. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, he attempted to sacrifice himself at one point. Not like it matters, because he's still alive. And the game concludes with either a good ending or a bad ending. But, alas, I didn't properly rescue all the classmates, so I do not meet the qualifications of the good ending. So instead, I got the bad ending where Juliet's mother turns into a zombie and kills everyone in progress.
Will you kids just hold on 2 seconds?
Wait, what?
I almost forgot.
How did that happen? Hold on a sec, I could've sworn I didn't rescue that boy from the Viking chapter. I'm assuming that because I was playing through this in the same save file, I must have rescued him during my first playthrough, and because of that, the progress actually carried over to my current playthrough. That being said, there is an achievement for getting the bad ending, and to my knowledge, if you accidentally get the good ending on your first playthrough, then you are locked out of getting that achievement unless you delete your save file. A reoccurring theme that you will notice when you encounter Juliet's family members is that they are ruthlessly ignorant towards Nick's temperament. He is unfortunately objectified through the entire game, and it does play a pivotal role throughout the game, so while I think these character designs and personalities are entertaining as all heck, it does clash whenever there are more serious settings in play. When the game is comedic, it's funny, I like it, but when they're trying to make fun of Nick's depressional state, it doesn't make me like the goofy antics, it just makes me think Juliet and her family members are a bunch of assholes. But there are also times where Nick is also immature as well, making him an irritating protagonist. When I say the game goes downhill after the arcade chapter, I'm not just talking about the gameplay, the story just stops functioning and brings this unnecessary tension between Nick and Juliet. It's fine if there's conflict between the two, I think that would make a more interesting dynamic, but unfortunately the dilemma doesn't really get resolved but more forgotten. The family member doesn't acknowledge their mistakes, and Nick seems to let bygones be bygones quite easily. So story-wise, while it had a fun beginning, it got more irritating by chapter 5 as the issue persists and unfortunately ends in a somewhat bland way. It's really funny to see that Nick is now in Morikawa's body, but otherwise it's just a happy ending for the sake of a happy ending. And this extends towards the final cutscene where either everyone lives or everyone dies. Literally the only 2 outcomes possible to any story without exploring any more narratives. However, if you manage to ignore the basic plot, this game is pretty fun. It's not the best hack and slash engine I've encountered. I do think the zombies are brain dead easy to deal with even on normal difficulty. Some even straight up glitching on me like running in place or whatever the hell this dude is up to. You okay there, buddy? You seem to be stuck in a rut. No? What are you doing? But it's still a fun time from beginning to end. I never got bored of the combat. The game for the most part knows when to include additional ways to kill zombies in a more flashy way, knows when to include minigames to diversify the gameplay. Not all the minigames are winners, sure, but it had a purpose to entertain. True, this is the type of game where you have to be in a specific mindset to fully enjoy it. You need to know its type of humor, you need to get a grasp on the hack and slash controls, but if this is the type of silly genre you look forward to play through with loads of referential humor, solid gameplay, and really fun boss fights, I would certainly recommend this game. If you have any experience with the No More Heroes series, well, I'm sure you already bought this game, but for those who have not yet, I'd say give this game a shot. So even with its lackluster climax and the gondola ride, I still enjoy this game for what it's worth. It's a fun hack and slash game with a lot of comedic values, and because of that, and how much it entertained me so much, Lollipop Chainsaw gets to graduate. Well, that was some good amount of time wasted, but unfortunately I feel my inevitable death coming through. It's a shame though, there's a lot of video games I still want to cover before I die. Oh well! Huh. I'm still alive somehow. I guess the zombie bite wasn't a toxin at all. It was just some cannibal.